We are recording. Okay. So I'm very excited to welcome Keri Vaca to our lovely Zoom interview for the documentary. This is the first interview I've done since the virus hit. So we're experimenting by doing it over Zoom. We were supposed to be in person doing this, possibly in Hawaii,
yes.
But now, now we're doing it from Kaua'i to San Francisco. So we'll see how it goes. So I've known Keri for a few years. She's very, very inspirational. She's been a dear friend. She's one of the rare people I've met on the cancer journey. I know a lot of people virtually through social media and such, but she's one of the rare people I've actually met in person and spent time with. And that's a very rare privilege that I'm grateful to know her in person. And we have some fun pictures together from a few years ago. And she's just a lovely, inspirational person. She's quite the story to tell. So I'm super excited she's here. And she wrote a little introduction that I'm going to read. So she said, "I'm intimate, curious, spontaneous, and adventurous. I live in San Francisco and am a photographer. I'm grateful to cancer for giving me my life back." And I can attest, yes, she is adventurous and curious and spontaneous and all these wonderful things. So welcome, my dear. Thank you for being here. And if you could share your story, that'd be really wonderful, everybody to hear, because I know people will be so inspired by your story.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. And you know, I love you so very much. And I'm getting connected to you and your cancer group has been one of the biggest components of my healing journey. And I know I feel like I share it with you all the time, but I just want to say it out loud. Just creating creating that space of connection, you know, was really huge for me. So yes, I'm super happy to be here and so excited to, I said, I don't know anybody that's been beat down more than you. And you just keep popping back up. Like, you're just like, down, and you're like, dang, and I'm just like, you really, you are incredible. So thank you for doing this. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's important for thrivers to share our story. And I think that's kind of what you gave me from the beginning, was this inspiration that this wasn't a death sentence, you know. So my story is I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer that had traveled. I had a tumor in my breast, and then the rest of the cancer was all in my liver. And I was diagnosed with that diagnosis as my first cancer diagnosis, which is very, very rare. Less than 10% of people are diagnosed with stage 4 cancer from the beginning, Mets in their, and then even less people all in the liver, which was very interesting. And ironically, my acupuncturist I'd been seeing, when I was talking to her and sharing about what happened, she had been feeling stuff happening in my liver. And I just said, oh, I've been drinking a lot. So I was really at probably the lowest point in my life when I got my diagnosis. I'd been in a marriage for 25 years that I knew I should not have gotten married in the beginning. And 25 years later, I'm like, you know, we'd been in therapy, really trying to work that out. I had 2 kids in crisis, and I was falling apart. And yeah, I had been having some issues in my liver that she'd been feeling during acupuncture. And then when I told her what the diagnosis was, she's like, oh, well, you know, your liver is your anger organ in Chinese medicine. And those words just click, click, click. It made so much sense to me. And I believe was a huge part of my healing, because I had not been living my true life ever. Since I can look back to being a child, being very unhappy with the way my life was, wanting different things than were offered to me, moving around, starting relationships when I was 14 that didn't serve me. I'd always known I wanted love and connection and emotional connection with people. And I just didn't have that with my family, with my husband, with my kids. And so it was a very insightful thing to hear that made me realize, like, it was just it was so fast, and it made so much sense that helped put me on this, of course I can heal this, because I just need to like switch my life into what I want it to. And it was just very obvious. So yeah, I knew I wanted to do alternative. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I was always kind of one, I didn't, vaccinate my kids right away. I never was one to just take antibiotics. So I knew I wanted a more natural approach. And I knew I wanted to do cannabis in a high dose, even though cannabis was my nemesis before my diagnosis. It is the biggest irony for sure. And then I started talking to a cannabis doctor about dosing me, and she said, hey, this is not a joke. This is very serious. I would listen to what is being offered to you at the hospital. So that was helpful, to hear that from her, because I wasn't sure, and I was in such a bad headspace. I couldn't really make that decision for myself. So I'm doing estrogen blockers. I do Faslodex and Zoladex, and I do that monthly. And then I take Ibrance. And then everything else has been just changing every single part of my life, from my food, my diet. I left my marriage 2 days before I got the actual diagnosis, because I knew that I was having this. I knew I had cancer when I felt the lump. And so I was just like, we've been trying for 3.5 years. This is done. And then, yeah, I just started slowly but surely just shifting everything in my life. And it took about a year in before I met my tribe, which connected me to you through ecstatic dance. The way it barrels down, I can picture the person who told me was connected to a DJ who is connected to the group. So yeah, and then so in 2017, my diagnosis was April of 2016. And by March of 2017, I'd found ecstatic dance, which really brought me into the community that connected to me to all the alternative modalities that I was really looking to. And one of the first ones being your group. So, yeah.
Oh.
And so
that's really powerful, just to jump in real quick, because I started that group in February of 2017. So you found it like right after I started.
Yeah, within a few months. Yeah, it was really close after. And it was great. And so here I am. I just celebrated, it was May 20th was the official metastatic diagnosis. And on May 20th of this year, and that was 2016, May 20th of 2020, I just had my scans, which I don't keep dates in my mind, but I wanted to know. And so I looked back in my planner pad and I was like, oh my gosh, my scan is literally 4 years to the day. And I've been tumor-free for more than 2 years now. No tumors, no progression. They told me, I remember the doctor at UCSF, my second, I've had 3 oncologists. My second oncologist, she was circling. So this drug will give you 24 months. This gives you an extra 4 months. This, so she mapped out that I would have about 30 months on the paper. And I remember just thinking, like, what? Like, to me, it was just like, you're weird. Like, why would you don't know me. It was really, I'm glad. And I did tell her when I broke up with her, I'm glad I am who I am, but that could really, really change somebody's direction when you put that limit on them. which I
For
think
sure.
is very important for us to all know, that statistics are based on very specific things. You know what I mean? Their statistics are for that person in that hospital who's doing all the hospital things, not probably doing all the different alternative things I'm doing. So that statistic's not really relevant if you're not just going to, it could be very relevant if I only did those medications that they gave me and didn't change my diet and didn't change my lifestyle and wasn't on cannabis and, you know, all those things. So yeah, so now it's been 4 years and I've never, cancer has given me the best life. As I always say, it's I'm so happy to be alive and to be healing and sharing.
Such a great story, super inspirational. So how do you feel like cancer has given you the best life?
Yeah,
Because that could inspire a lot of people to be like, oh, it doesn't have to be a terrible thing. So I think it's important to go into that because it's a whole mindset piece.
It's interesting. I would say for me, it was almost like a get out of jail free card. You know, it was this, it was, I had been in this marriage, you know, and my ex, we are great friends. He's been building a deck in I'm living in our old home together. He lives somewhere else. He comes over and works on the house. We exchange produce from the market and stuff. And he's a great man. And we were not a good couple. We were great friends, and so I got into this marriage when I was 20 years old so we could go travel. I had a job in another country, and I knew I shouldn't have got married. And I said, like, let's do it just so we travel for a year. But he was conservative and Catholic and was like, no, I'm only going to get married once. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, this will work. And I just knew in my gut that it wasn't right, but I kept thinking it would change. So then, you know, 6 years later, we had kids, then you're in it. You know, I know, you know, it's like, you've got these kids, now we've got this life together. And I always just felt like, oh, it'll change. It'll change. It'll get better. Oh, we can do therapy. We can do this. We can do that. Well, it just didn't. And it got worse. And so we were really in a very, very bad place when I felt the lump. And there was just something when I knew I had cancer. I'd kind of willed it. I'd always said I would get cancer my whole life because everybody around me had it. So I grew up saying, like, I'm going to get cancer. I'm going to get cancer. I started getting mammograms at like 30. Every year I got a mammogram from the time I was 30, which I don't also recommend. They didn't see it on the mammogram, ironically. And
really,
that's a whole nother story. I had a mammogram in November of 2015. Looking back at the mammogram now, you can see there was a tumor. They missed it and they said I was fine. And I'm so glad, because if they had caught it before it was stage 4, I don't think I would be alive. I believe I needed I'm a very extreme person. I believe at that time when I got the diagnosis, my life was in shambles. I had no emotional support. I was dying. I wanted to die. That's also the other thing. Every day I would be like, please let a car run into me today while I'm taking the kids to school, because I don't want to live another day. And it's ironic because I had all these symptoms for years. We thought I had rheumatoid arthritis. We kept going and the doctor said, oh, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. Here, take a pill. I took the pill. My pain went away. You know what it was? When I look back, he gave me like a prescription Advil. So yeah, it helped but the numbers, when my oncologist looked at my numbers, she's like, you were a red flag. So I had so many ways and so many doctors that should have caught this cancer early, but nobody did. And I'm great. At first it was upsetting. And then now I look at it, if I had have got you know, as you know, when you get a breast cancer diagnosis, the first thing they say, all right, we're scheduling surgery, either lumpectomy or mastectomy. We're scheduling radiation. Oh, we'll get you on chemo. They're doing that as they're diagnosing you. They're already scheduling you. At the time, I wasn't in an emotional place to stop, to question, to think, like to give myself like a few weeks, like what do I want to do? And I think I would have just been too scared and not know what to do and just would have followed what they said. And if I had have done that at that time in my life, I think chemo would have killed me. I don't think I would have had the emotional strength and knowledge of all the things that I know now to support myself through that. And just leaving my marriage and being, you know, as you know, when you go through chemo, you know, it's like
extreme.
You're not feeling the cutest. You're not feeling your best. You can't think straight, you know, and being newly single, being on my own, going through that, I don't think I could have done it. So I feel really fortunate.
So like it had to be extreme for you to pay attention, basically.
Totally.
Like being at the very edge. So if you were diagnosed stage 2, you might not have paid attention and made those changes.
I wouldn't have. I really don't think I would have. I knew that I needed that. And it was that instant, like when they tell you, you have probably 2.5 to 3 years, go get on disability. You know, I was like, I'm going to be sick. Like what? Like she's telling me this as she's diagnosing me, the first oncologist, and telling me to go get my affairs in order and just go travel. She said, go travel. And I'm like, yeah, it was so weird. But it was this weird kind of like, oh, okay, wow, I actually have to put myself first. And I had I had 2 kids in crisis, one with mental illness who had just went off their meds. And it was the first time like I set boundaries. You know, I said, my kid was 20 years old and I said, hey, all right, you went off your meds, great, but I can't take care of you like I've been doing all along. I can't manage you. I have to manage me. And then I left my partner, even though we had to still live together. It was cutting these ties. And then as I started cutting them, I started finding pieces of myself, remembering the person that I once was. And there was this permission that I got to be that person, because I could be dead in 6 months. So if I'm not that person now, so it was this weird like permission just to, I want to swear, I just want to be like, it was like, fuck off everybody.
I'm doing me.
Yeah. I used to swear a lot, and now I'm much softer and gentler, but it's hard for people to imagine that don't know me. If you ask my family, my kids, I was one of the scariest people I know. Like I screamed, I yelled, I was so ugly. I could just raging. And looking back now, it was just me being, and so of course, all these tumors were in my liver. I was raging all the time, but with a smile on my face to everybody in the outside world. But you ask my kids, you ask my ex, that's what I've had to apologize and really own how ugly I was to myself and the people closest to me, because I was like a caged animal. I was so not living my authentic life, and I didn't recognize how it was eating me, literally eating me from the inside. So cancer was just like, girl, you can keep being this crazy, angry woman who's not satisfied with anything in your life, or here's your permission to switch it all around. So it was like cancer came as my white knight to save me. I had 2 days after the diagnosis, the first 2 days, I was in that, I called it a pepper spray bubble. I felt like everything was muffled. I felt like everything was burning and itching my skin. And all I could think of is everything I saw, I was like, that person doesn't have cancer. They're not going to die. Like I was in that for 2 days. And then after 2 days, I was like, this is not me. I was just like, this is not me. And that's when I like switched my mindset, that I was like, that's not for me.
And I'm just curious, you mentioned mindset. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate hearing it. In regards to mindset, like, what would you say to somebody to switch that mindset? Because as you said, the medical system, society, family, the whole condition response is, oh my gosh, I have cancer, I'm going to die. And even for me, sharing my experience, I've gone through so much, and I'm still in this place of like, how do I orient my mind? I'm really diving deep down into that. How do I switch it? Because I can think, okay, I'm cancer free, but I think there's so many subtle layers of it. If you could speak to how you really own that to know you're cancer free, I think that'd be very, very helpful for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. And I recognize it's been a process that has grown over time from belief. Actually, I'll start it here. From faking it. We learned while my kid, we were doing therapy. We were doing emotion regulation therapy to help Sid, which ended up helping us. I use all these tools, how to regulate your emotions. And they talked about smiling, like when you're like, so if you're in a family conflict, they were like, just fake smile and it's going to instantly change the energy. Because if you're just like, and then you're like, great, this is great, this is great, it brings a different energy. And they would always just say, fake it till you make it. So I always kind of had that in the back of my head. So in the beginning, it was definitely, I knew that the fear didn't serve me, and I'd been in fear of leaving my marriage. I'd been in fear of my child dying. I'd been in fear all my life. So there was this weird thing that when I let go of that, like that first 2 days of this feeling, I was like, that's not where I want to live. And there was this weird, I had this newfound like weird freedom that the cancer gave me to leave everything behind. Like literally in one day, I was just like, everything is behind me. I can only take care of me. So I started faking it and just like, I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. But of course, when I'm laying in bed at night, you know, or you feel, you know, I know, you know, this feeling, you're like touching yourself and you're like, oh my God, every bump, instantly you're just thinking it's cancer, you know. And you know, people would say like, oh, next year when we go to Burning Man, and my mind would go to, that's 12 months away. Like I might be dead. Like, but I would go, but that wasn't that was the fear, you know? So I would be like, I believe this, but the fear would come and I would just let it come in and then let it go out. You know, I'd kind of like acknowledge it. Like, thanks for letting me know you're still here, but I'm good. And then letting it go. And just really doing that as a consistent acknowledgement of, I'm recognizing that this is coming from a fear space. We also learned this technique in the therapy was like, is this a justified fear? You know, are my feelings valid? Yes. But is it really justified? No, right now it's not. Like my tumors keep shrinking. I'm doing fine. And so I just kept really, it's been a very dedicated practice for me to really keep sticking to that. And also the cannabis was a huge part of that, because I took a very, very, very high dose for the first 2 years, and I would microdose all day. And so I was just high for 2 years, and that was very challenging. But at night I would take this very large dose, and sometimes it would hit me before I fell asleep, and it would make me paranoid, crazy paranoid. And all the fears would come in, every fear. I was like, I'm going to die. Who do I think I am? Of course I'm not going to, I can't beat this. They've told me I have. And so it was this weird, and I started learning it was like being on a bad trip. So I would be like, you're just tripping out, Keri. It's fine. You're not going to. So there was this weird thing that I think I actually was able to process my fear during those little quiet moments with myself, with the cannabis guiding me as this medicine. And once I stopped freaking out about it, I would be like, oh, wait a second. Yeah. Okay, Keri, this is just your way. It's your little way that you can do this, and you can be scared for a few minutes, but then it's done. And then what's interesting is now when my cannabis kicks in, and I'm on a maintenance dose at night now, and so it still is a very high dose, but I will, now it's really creative. Like it's switched. I don't have those feelings anymore. And I would say it's been about the past year that I actually have no fear. Like I don't have fear. And I don't have a belief. I have a knowing. I know that I am not meant to die from this cancer anytime in the near future. Like I know it. I just feel it. But it's been a process of diving in, letting the fears come, acknowledging them. Why do I have this fear? Is this really real? And then when I just realized I'm living, I have these scans every time. They've been nothing but positive and clear. Let's just go with that. Let's go with that.
So when you go get a scan now, do you have fear that comes up? Or are you just certain they're like, nope, it's going to be clear? You know it.
I've actually, and I do think this is a privilege. So somebody asked me on my YouTube videos, can you make a video about scanxiety? And I was like, I don't have it. And I've actually never had it, because I've always had shrinking. So I can understand, the oncologist, I saw her yesterday, and I had said, I got a message in my email that they said, one of the nurses said, your scans are stable, no progression of disease. That's all she said in this text. And I was like, come on. I was like, no, scans look great, exclamation point. Like, and it was interesting. And the doctor said, when she came in, the doctor was like, oh my God, your scans are great. And I was like, well, at least somebody thinks it. And I shared, and you know what she said? She said, yeah, I totally get you. And she's like, you are doing great and congratulations. She said, I had a patient say one time, she's like, oh, your scans look great. And she said, well, you've said that before. And then the tumors came back. So some people don't want to get their hopes up. So right. I was like, I get that, but I guess for me, my mind is probably one of the biggest parts of my healing is just the belief that I know why I got my cancer, which I think is one of the most important things you can ask yourself. Figure it out. Why did it come? Most people I ask will say genetics. Less than 10% of breast cancer is genetic. My cancer, my whole family had cancer. Not one of us had the genetic gene. It was just, it's all these other things. So, so with my scans, in the beginning, I probably just, I was probably like, yeah, but I had to fake it. I'm like, I'm good. It was after, when I was waiting for the results, I was like, okay. But after the first few, I just really was like, yep, this is great. So now I do kind of feel like when I go in there, I always tell them, this is for you. It's not for me. I don't even wait to get the response. Everybody's like, when do you find out the results? I'm like, I'm fine. I just pushed out to 6 months. So this is the longest I've ever gone without a scan. So it felt, so also it feels like you live in those increments, right? Like I was living in 3-month increments. Then I lived in a 4-month increment for 2 months. And now I'm in a 6-month increment. There's something about that I'm like, oh, good. Now I've got 6 more months, like.
Yeah, congratulations. That's huge.
It's this very interesting thing. But I encourage people to push and ask yourself, why can't you? What does it hurt to let your mind let go of any fear?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you said, just to jump in real quick, I love what you said. What I heard you say is, when the fear came in, you would actually listen to it and hear what it had to say and then say, thank you, but I'm going to choose to be another way. I think most of us, when we get caught up in fear, we don't really acknowledge it. It's there and we just push it away. It's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But the key is to listen to it and acknowledge it and then let it go and make a conscious choice. And also too, what I'm really getting from you is you are going deep with the cannabis, with the medicine you were using, which allowed you to face your fears. Yeah. And that's very powerful and potent.
Yeah. That just gave me chills. It's so interesting how much I hated this plant and how it was such a destructive force in my marriage and with my children. Like, so many bad things. So it was really like, it's so interesting how it's showed up for me in I have 15 plants growing in my backyard right now. I juice, I talk to them, I give them so much love, and I always apologize for judging them, not knowing, their powerful medicine. But that was something, that I was learning. There's this amazing podcast, the Healing Feeling Shit Show, and she calls it emotional potty training. And she talked about when we push down our fears, when we push down those negative, what we look at as a negative emotion, it's like, oh, we shouldn't have it. We should ignore it. We shouldn't feel it. Oh, I'm powerful. I shouldn't feel this way. She's like, they're hurt. They get wounded. They're sitting there festering. It's not helping us. So she has this episode where you walk down into the basement where you've locked them. And she's like, go over and open the door and she's like, but don't go fast. Like, you got to be ready for them. And then she just really talks about diving in to all those uncomfortable feelings that we've been told our whole lives we shouldn't feel them, right? So she talks, so I started that really resonated with me, and I would start really acknowledging, because like when you're feeling happy, you don't question yourself, or most people don't. Some people could, but when you feel that fear, it's just like, oh, that's something I shouldn't feel. That's not okay. But when you feel it and you're like, why do I feel fear right now? Hey, what are you here to tell me? Just like cancer, what are you here to tell me? And then you can take it. But it was just really letting anything go through me. It's not here to stay, but I'm going to acknowledge it. And these wild episodes with cannabis at night, like it took a lot of, they were terrifying. It was terrifying when they first started, and I was not experienced. And then, this friend was just like, my friend told me when you're having a bad trip, just remind yourself you're having a bad trip. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I started just being like, okay, it's okay, Keri, you're going to feel okay tomorrow. And then I would just start diving in and like letting my mind go to the worst case scenario. Like, I'm going to die. Okay, I'm going to die. we're all going to die. So what
So
do I
allow that to be there?
What would just allow it to be there? And then if I am going to die, and that also helped me live that next day. So when I would wake up, I'm like, I'm alive, I have a day. And then it would help me recognize, well, okay, yeah, if I'm going to die, you know, we all can get hit by a bus or, you know, whatever. It's like, if today was my day, am I living my best life? Am I doing what's good for me? And so it really just helped shift. And fear is just, it's interesting. I lived my whole life with fear. And I'm like, I'm so good. I've felt enough fear for 100 people's lifetimes. It just doesn't suit me anymore. It just doesn't suit me.
That's so awesome. I really see you as being fearless and very free.
Thank you.
Wonderful. What a gift to work through that.
I feel it in my, I know it, like I said, now I know it, but it's taken me 4 years to get to this knowing, you know, and my emotional work is the most work I've done on healing is healing from the deepest cores of my emotions stuck in my liver throughout my whole body. That's been, I'd say, that the hardest work I've done by far.
For sure. I see that.
Thank you.
You're glowing, you're bright, you're beautiful, honey. You're living it. I was curious too, we're in the middle of this pandemic, coronavirus, and I was interested in getting your viewpoint of how the COVID-19 or coronavirus is so similar to having a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And you also are in San Francisco in California, whereas I'm in Kaua'i, where there's not so much going on here. So you're living it a lot more than I am. So I'd be interested in getting your perspective about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And you look so glowy in this Kaua'i. I am very envious of you right now with this beautiful backdrop. Yeah, I have to say another cancer gift. There's stage 4 cancer. It's like totally prepared me for COVID. Again, the fear, what fear would I have? You know, it's so interesting. When you are dying, the uncertainty, I'm guessing, is probably the hardest thing for most people. Uncertainty of knowing, how can I get this? Am I going to get it? And death. We are not, as a society, we are not okay with dying. Dying, if you talk about dying, like that puts fear in people, you know? And I know as you or somebody who's done grief counseling and lots of work in that space, you understand death. You've seen it, you've been around it. And I think in general, just most people don't. So when this came about, I was in the first 2 weeks, I was just laughing to myself. I was like, wow, I feel actually really prepared for this kind of mindset. The uncertainty every single day with cancer, when you have a stage 4 cancer, every day, you don't know what's going to happen. And especially with metastatic breast cancer, we look great. People with metastatic breast cancer don't look, because usually you're not doing so much chemo, and you know it's generally, for me, it wasn't even offered. Chemo and radiation wasn't even offered to me. So it's like, you look great, but it can come, and I've lost so many friends. I mean, you've seen in our group. You're like, wait, what? They just died yesterday? I just messaged them 3 days ago. So that's been my life for the past 4 years, is like seeing how people come and go, seeing these amazing, beautiful people navigate death and share their beautiful experience and how they've come to terms with it. So I don't fear death. So I think that helps in one of the biggest ways. Like, if I got coronavirus and that took me out, okay.
Right.
I'm living my best life today. The uncertainty and just, we live this life where we don't know what's going to happen. Getting your immunity up, like paying attention, like people are starting to be curious about their health. People are like, how do I get my immunity up? The amount of people that have written to me to ask how to get their immunity up because of COVID, I'm like, oh, okay, great. And just, I think facing the fears of death, I don't want to get COVID. And interestingly enough, I kind of feel like if I can navigate shrinking a liver full of tumors that literally I have it on my voice recording from my diagnosis where I said, can we do surgery on my liver? And she said, no, there's too many tumors. It's your whole liver. And I said, well, what will happen? I said, will they go away? And she's like, probably not. We just hope that they don't grow. And I have no tumors left out of my liver, which is one of the hardest places to clear them. So I'm kind of like, I feel kind of like a badass that I feel like,
yep.
Yeah, I feel like if I got the virus, I feel like I would do everything in my power to heal my body from it. And if that's God's plan to take me out, I always joke that the first oncologist said, when she said you have metastatic breast cancer, I'd never heard of this before. I didn't know what it was. And I just said, what does that mean? And she said, literally, to quote her words on a tape I have, she said, this cancer will take your life. That's what she's telling me 20 minutes into telling me that I have metastatic breast cancer. The first thing that I thought was, she does not know me. I am wild and I do crazy things. And so the joke is when I die from tripping over something while I'm jumping over Niagara Falls or something, like to tell her oh, Keri didn't die from that. So I always kind of think if something else, coronavirus wanted to take me out, okay, but I don't have fear around it. I think it's very important. I've separated myself from the media. And one other, I think, big point is, I think you understand this really well too. You have to research for yourself. You can't just watch the news. You can't watch the conventional news, whether you're, it's so biased. It's so political. It's, there's always an agenda. And it's very fear-inducing. Fear sells, lots of broadcasts. So I think that for us, researching, I feel like we're in a secret group having this cancer, knowing the things that we know because of the group that we're in, because of the research we've done, that we don't just follow mainstream protocols. That for me, I feel a sense of I know there's other options for me. I know how to protect myself better. I'm not just going to wait until I get it and then let them decide what to do to me. I've been already doing research. If I get it, how would I want to be treated? I feel like we're more into the knowledge as power, I feel like we have more power because we have just more we know that we can do, we're not powerless and we're not at somebody else's mercy. We can make a difference by being proactive. So I feel stage 4 cancer totally prepared me for COVID. So I don't have fear about it. And I am social distancing and washing my hands and being careful. But I also am it hit me this week. I need to live my life. I need to live too. Not
good. Yeah. Well, certainly, I believe if you've done all this with stage 4 cancer, COVID has nothing on you, honey.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Let's see. That was really awesome. Thank you for saying that. It was really wonderful. I feel like, yeah, we've gotten some good material here, and I can edit this piece out. But is there anything? Yeah, this is super great. Is there anything you can think of you'd like to share that's super relevant?
I'm wondering, so with mindset, did I go into, let me think about that. Do you feel like I covered enough with mindset? I can't remember now where I was going with that because
yeah, I think it was great.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Let me just look at my questions, see if anything pops up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of something. Yeah, I love how you talked about the death and just everything. Yeah, this is super rich. Really great. Okay, let me think of how to phrase this. All right. So I have another question. I was just wondering, you know, a lot of people get a cancer diagnosis and they feel like hiding it. They don't want to share with people. Like a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes they don't share with their close friends, or they'll just share with their close friends. So you, like me, you're just like, this is what's going on with me. You're making videos and just really a helpful beacon of hope for so many people. And I'm just curious, what led you to share your journey publicly in the way that you are and helping so many people?
That's a great question. And I have to say, I've been shocked when people have reached out to me. When I first got my diagnosis, I had a friend of mine reach out, and she's like, she sent me a book, and she said, I know that this book is true. Good luck on your cancer healing journey. And I found out she had already had cancer. She'd already went all through cancer, and I had no idea. And it was crazy because she then got, she was cleared. So when I got my diagnosis, she had already been cleared of cancer. Within 6 months of my diagnosis, she was dead. It came back as Mets and went away. And that was terrifying to me, that I was like, wait, what? Like, I didn't even know you had cancer. Now you have it again and you're already dead. And it was interesting. A friend of mine said, a mutual friend said, you know, because I was like, oh my, it really scared me. And I was just like, this is real. Like, this is a person I know. And my friend said, you know, she never shared. She never dealt with her traumas. She was so in her own. She's like, she just said, you're not her. So it was interesting. I started living my life out loud in 2014, 2015, when my child was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and had a manic episode. And it was devastating, and it was all encompassing of everything in my life. They were in the psychiatric ward. My other kid was arrested for having too much pot. And I was like going to back to school night, and I had one kid in the psych ward and one kid in juvenile hall. And I'm at back to school night. And I just like, my marriage is failing. I want to die. And somebody's like, oh, how are the kids? Where are they? And I just was like, oh, well, one's in the psych ward and one's in juvenile hall. And this person's face was just like, and I was like, in that moment, I remember it so clearly. I was like, I can't not say what's happening in my life anymore. And my kids are amazing now. Everything is so good. We've been on such a healing journey together. But what I realized was I had been hiding how unhappy I was my whole life and faking it, that I was smiling on the outside, but raging on the inside. And I just realized it's not real. It's not true. And I can't fake who I am anymore. It's not serving me. I'm hurting, like I am suffering. And by what I noticed, some people were like, And they left, but so many people leaned in, and it was interesting. People are like, oh, do you know this therapist? Oh, have you tried this thing? Oh, my kid went through that and now they're doing amazing. Like, it was, I needed help. I needed a lawyer. One of my great parent friends was a lawyer, and I had to get them involved. And so I started blogging, and somebody picked it up with the, in the Huffington Post, somebody was like, they'd read one of my blogs on my website, and he wrote for the Huffington Post. He said, hey, I was reading some of your posts about you're just being so honest about your life. We'd love to publish. So all of a sudden I had like 5 blogs about like my personal life just on blast to the world. Wow. And it was the amount of people that I felt connected to my story, whether they had a kid in crisis, whether they felt the same way, as whether they had a marriage that they were navigating that wasn't so great. I started getting the emotional connection that I wanted, the real deep emotional connection. By sharing my truth, it connected me to people. And connection had been what I had wanted my whole life, but it had always eluded me. So there was something about sharing my truth that brought me connection. So when I got my diagnosis, I was just like, I'm not going to change now. And I'll say I lost a lot of friends. When I left my marriage, it was triggering to a lot of my friends in their shitty marriages that weren't going to leave their marriage. It was like, all right, I'm living my truth now. And it did polarize people, but it polarized people that weren't going to be a good support for me. But by living outward and sharing truthfully, I think it helps us not live a lie. There's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed by when you have cancer. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. We're not lepers. It's like, it's okay. It's like, we have cancer. But for me, it's opened doors to the healing. I announced it in that first ecstatic dance. And that first ecstatic dance changed my life because we had like a sharing circle at the end. And I just
you announced it at the end there. That's so courageous.
My first ecstatic dance.
In your first one too, no less.
I had never been, and we were sitting in the sharing circle with maybe, and a lot of my friends now, they say, I remember that as clear as day when you said that. Cause I'm like this 46, I was 46, 47 at the time, woman at this new wild fun dance thing. And I was just like, I'm healing a stage 4 cancer, and I feel like I found my tribe. And everybody came over and hugged me, and I'm just like crying. And on that very first time, somebody walked over to me and they said, have you tried combo medicine? I know friends that have tried this. And I was like, no, I haven't. 3 weeks later, I was in Peru by myself.
Nice.
What is this? And I'm like, all because of one person in ecstatic dance, and then another girl going, we should go to Peru together. And then all of a sudden she broke her foot and I'm in Peru. And the stories like that, because I share out loud, people will be like, I know somebody that knows this. Do you know about that? Have you tried this? Let me connect you to sound healing. So by sharing out loud, I'm inviting in all the gifts. I'm inviting the prayers. We all know prayers are powerful medicine. People visualize. I mean, I have our friend Ronnie Ray, he said, I took you off of the altar. I still pray for you, but people need it more than you. But he's like, I've had you on my altar for the past 2 years, praying for me every day. Hearing those messages are so powerful. But how can somebody support me if they don't know? So for me, I want to inspire others. Part of it is very selfish. I want anything that's going to help me that, you know, I don't know about. I want it to come to me, you know, and I want to inspire others and give other people hope, and just the support of my community, the GoFundMe's, you know, like the financial support. You can't get that when you're doing it by yourself, you know?
Very true.
So I just feel so many doors are open by sharing. For me, getting to be myself unapologetically. I swear, I'm loud, I talk a lot, you know, that's who I am. That's who I am. And I'm not going to hide that. And people can tune me out. They can turn me off. They could, you know, fast forward through me, or, you know, or I'm going to get some connection of some way. I feel like it's a mutual energetic flow. You know, I feel like things flow in and out of me. I get and I receive, I give and I get, you know, it's all encompassing.
You're very strong in your authentic self. That's very clear and super inspiring to see. I hope.
As are you. You have always lived this outward, and you know, and that you're inspiring, you know, you help me be able to talk out loud. And I'm guessing I probably help you. Like, we give yourself permission to go deeper, you know, it's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I can, you know, I can share that part of me. I can be more vulnerable. You know, the more we each do it, the more it empowers us all to go there and support each other.
Very true. Yeah. It's validating. I find it's very healing for me to share my vulnerability in the public eye, because it's like I feel heard, and then once I'm heard, I can let it go.
Yes.
But it is a strange impetus just to be so open, because I'm actually more on the quiet side when I'm in a group of people. I'm good to be quiet and the listener. So, wow, what is this impetus to share so publicly? So
yeah,
it's really great to hear your take on it. It makes a lot of sense.
And that's really powerful what you just said. And that resonates so much. Sometimes we just need to say it out loud. We don't need somebody to fix it, you know. And I think it is nice sometimes you can share something out loud, and I've seen you do it, and it helps me. It's like, not looking for advice.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing because I want to say it out loud. And then once you say it out loud, that's kind of like releasing that fear. You're giving it a voice, and it's okay. Hey, I feel like dying today. I feel like shit. I feel like giving up. This fucking sucks. This hurts. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm okay, guys. I just needed to scream it from the rooftops. Don't worry, tomorrow I'm going to pull my bootstraps up and it's okay. But sometimes we do need just to let it out. That's a really, really, really powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because I do feel like sometimes I just need to say it out loud, and that's it.
Yeah. And just say, this is just part of my therapy. You don't need to fix me. Exactly. I find that especially on Facebook. People love to give advice. It's like, I'm not asking for advice. Just need to say it.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah, thank you. I have one other question too that keeps popping in my mind, and you will understand this very well. You spoke about this earlier, the fact that we are a tight group of cancer journeyers and thrivers, and how it's so painful when we hear that one of us hasn't made it, has passed, and how that can really hurt and affect us. And I'm just curious to hear how that is for you, because I know how it is for me, but how do you sit with that when you hear, like you said, oh, I was just messaging with that person 3 days ago and now they're gone? How does that affect you, and how do you move that through yourself? Because I think that's an important piece, because we do know people on this journey.
You can't be on a cancer journey without being surrounded by death. Like and I get, well, maybe some people do, but like with the way we are and within our group, and just that, I think for somebody like you and I, who very much share publicly, we have so many, not only just the friends in our group that we've connected with over these few years, but we have people that reach out to us, you know, for advice and for connection. So we we really get a lot of people, you know, I know a lot of people with cancer.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll say this, I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and I don't know. I think I have work to do here. I know I do have work to do here. So it's ironic that you're asking me this, because I think there's a very big part of me that I've learned to compartmentalize a lot of things in my life. And we learn this in therapy, that it's okay to put something on the shelf and come back to it when you're ready for it. Not denying it, not shoving it down and sweeping it under the rug and pretending like it didn't happen. But I remember so clearly the therapist saying, you know, like, hey, I have an issue that I need to deal with my mom, and I need to like restore something, but this just is not the time. It's going up on the shelf. So I'm going to come back to it when I'm ready and I have the skills. And that always stuck with me as such good advice. And I've noticed I lost a very a high school friend of mine just a month or two ago. And it was really interesting. I've learned, you know, I lost my dad. I lost like 6 or 7 people within like a year's time that were actually like close in my life. And I noticed that I didn't have much emotion, even with my dad passing. And I've been thinking about it, and I was like, well, I felt so, there's 2 parts. I feel like we're all going to die. And when you have a sense of, like with my dad, nothing unsaid, really just are the most powerful relationship space we've ever been in. And I know he's with me. So I didn't really grieve a lot. And I feel I've almost gotten a little numb. And I've noticed a numbness for myself that I actually have been thinking I want to dive into a little bit and recognize, am I just really okay with this? Or maybe I'm so good at holding it all together. Like my whole family was in shambles for more than a decade and nobody knew it on the outside because Keri held it together. So there's a part of me that I'm really good at that. And there's the new part of me, the softer part of me that feels like maybe I've been putting on my hard shell because I didn't want to, like, maybe it's too close to home. You know, that this good friend of mine had breast cancer, went down the natural path, had some really, you know, she was not getting cared for, like she was not having scans. She did not know how much it had progressed. Turns into stage 4. They were saying she was going into like starting PT in the next week. And then I get a message that she's passing. And I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a big part of me that was just, you know, I don't know, right at the beginning of COVID. It's been very recent. I've been actually feeling like maybe I need to sit with this a little more. And like I actually was on a road trip recently, and I had a little cry over her, and I was like, maybe it's okay for me to feel that. But I feel that is a place that I've built a pretty thick skin around it, you know. And I also know I've seen probably 6 people die. I've been with 6 people as they've passed over. I know you are very familiar in that space. So I also see the beauty. I see how shitty it can be and how I don't want to die. And I see the beauty, and I believe in an afterlife. I believe that we were here on this earth for a very short time. I'm not afraid of death, but I feel like I have a healthy feeling about it, like we're all gonna die, it's all gonna be okay. But there's a part of me that I do feel I've protected my heart maybe a little, that maybe there's a box on the shelf that maybe I need to sit and open and explore a little more, because I feel like I'm a little numb, to be honest, because it happens on a weekly basis. I know somebody that dies, whether it's, you know, somebody close or somebody, an acquaintance, you know. The fact that you're doing a documentary, I have had 3 people start documentaries on me. One of them died, who had cancer. And I was like, yeah, this is hard, you know? So I'm curious how you navigate that too, because you're also not only around it, seeing it, you've treated it, you've lost your best friends to it, but you are the matron, you know, the mama of our group, where you are the you are the Grim Reaper sometimes, having to share this, not, you know, to share this with the group on a constant. So I'm curious how you navigate that, and if you notice how your body reacts to this, because I'm curious.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I appreciate it. It's tough. It's really tough. It's really hard to be the leader of a group and have to break the news of, like, one of us just passed. It's heartbreaking. I'm like, oh no, not again. This last time it happened a few weeks ago, I was talking to a dear friend. I was like, I just hate telling this group this, because I know it ripples through and it affects all of us, and it's a reflection of our path. And, you know, we all grow to love that person, especially if they're active in the group. And yeah, personally, it really breaks my heart. I feel some emotions kind of when I'm talking about it, because it's certain people I get close to, like you do. And I have noticed part of me not getting as close to certain people, being like, if they pass and I'm close, my heart's going to be totally ripped open again. Because there's people I've gotten so close to, and I've been there, and they've been like messaging me constantly. And then it's like their husband calls me. Like, a lot of times it's very common. A husband will call me or message me before the public knows. And I'm very honored to be in that position. But at the same time, it's like so heartbreaking. I'm like, oh no. So yeah, it's hard. So I understand the numbing piece, because I think I've been exposed to so much death at this point. A part of me is a little numb because it hurts so much, and it does reflect my own experience. So it's a tough one. And I would guess that many of us would say the same thing on the journey.
Yeah.
This would be a good question for the group.
Yeah. And it is. And like I said, it's just hit me recently that I want to be truthful with myself, that I just started noticing. I'm like, are you are you feeling this? Like, cause I have the tears come, and I think it's hard. I guess I'm noticing also people who are more on our path of this, like, alternative thinking, thinking outside of the box, out of mainstream thinking about death, about treatment, about cancer, everything. And I lost a dear friend to brain tumors in November. And I remember I wept and wept and wept, actually, when I got that news. I was on I was traveling in Mexico, and it was interesting. The rain just started pouring down, and there was this almost permission. And I was with a friend who had lost 3 of his family members. He's the last surviving family member, all to cancer. And he was with me. And I'm now, thank you for being therapy for me, Tara. I'm like connecting this now, because I'm thinking back to the time when I've been the most emotional. And she, from the minute I met her, she said she was a scientist and she had brain tumors, and the doctors said that they wouldn't, like, she couldn't be cured, and there was no hope for her. And she told me, oh no, they said it can't shrink. She was very much in a mindset that there was nothing she could do. So I had a lot of this, my heart ached for her to be in that space where she couldn't actually feel hi baby that she couldn't actually feel that safety, and that like not even safety, that she couldn't feel any kind of power for her journey. And that I felt very sad. But I'm wondering, it's the time I've most openly wept, and I do believe it was almost like it's raining. It was like literally this massive downpour, and I just stood with this person who really knew what I was going through, and I let loose. So I'm wondering if there is maybe like a space that I could give myself to like let myself be in that ritual space of maybe making a specific time for it. But a lot of times I feel at peace knowing that somebody is out of pain, out of suffering, you know, but it also, it's right in your face. It's right in your face that you're like, we had the same diagnosis. We got it at the same time, or we were doing the same protocols, or, oh my God, I thought you were totally okay. Like I said, my friend, they were saying she was going to start PT because she'd been in a bed for 9 months. And then a week later she's passed, and it's like, wait. So it is a lot. It's a lot to navigate. And that is a place that I do feel that, I don't know, I've got some things in there, you know, that I've been thinking about a lot lately. So it's a great question.
Yeah, it's good to talk about. And I think what you said, allowing safe space for feeling the grief, is really important. And I used to run grief rituals with my horses, and we're not really allowed to feel grief in our culture. There's this sense of like, oh, okay, somebody passed, I got to stuff my feelings, or aren't you over it yet? You know, after a month or something, when it's like someone you love dearly, of course, you know, it takes a while to process. So I think creating safe space to feel the grief, to get angry or cry, whatever it is so important.
Yeah.
I'm saying it to myself too, as I'm saying that to you.
Yeah. No, and I actually feel, because it's interesting that I'm okay to navigate my own feelings. Like, I guess like not having fear about my own death or something, but I am a very empathic, emotional person. I mean, I cry every single day, like, and I'm fine with it. But there has been something that this has been something that I've been thinking about for about the past 2 months now, is just like, am I suppressing any of these emotions around the people that I know that are dying? So this will be my homework now that it's said out loud, and you've helped me say this out loud. I am wondering if maybe just like having that safe space to have it, and I have had, I mean, with her, I did have a very, like, the tears just came, but I've noticed in certain spaces where I'm like, how am I not feeling like, it's just like, oh, another person. Like, I think it's more those people that I hear about that are a little, you know, that it's like, I don't really know them that well, but you know, not, and it's just like, to me, I feel like there might be a little bit of a protection, and it's keeping that at bay. It's like, okay, that's not me, it's farther out, you know, and so I do feel like that there is a lot to balance in there.
Yeah. And like you said, with what you came to when you were diagnosed, feeling your emotions. So maybe this is just, another deeper layer to go into for self-revelation for all of us.
Yeah, it's never over. We can always go deeper. We can always go deeper. And that's what I love about this journey, is the beauty of the unfolding of the more layers, because each layer that we unfold, we learn more about ourselves. And I feel like that's how we heal for real forever. Our mind doesn't know what's real, what's not real. Our mind knows our thoughts. So, you know, the more that we can clear those thoughts and have very pure and real and true thoughts, and we can let go of those things, that's to me where I believe, like, that's where the believing went to knowing, is I know in my bones why I got cancer. I know exactly why it came to me, and that is what I've spent 4 years on. And I start every morning and every night. I go to bed and I'm like, I'm grateful for this journey, and I thank this journey for giving me this life what I'm doing right now with you, I would not be doing. You know, I would not be talking out loud like this. I would not be sharing. And I'm just, every single day, you know, going to the farmer's market this morning, it's like, I'm so grateful for this. And every layer that I go deeper and I get to know myself better, and it takes me to a new place, that I see that as healing. I recognize that as healing every time I progress forward. Having this conversation with you right now, like having this nugget and connecting this safe space of me crying about my friend dying, like now I'm like, oh, now I've got more. This is a layer of me healing. This is a layer of me not going backwards. You know, when we go backwards, I think that's when the cancer can come back. But I'm dedicated, I'm committed to myself to not go backwards. I'm going forwards. So it means going deep. It means going deep to go that way. And it's okay. You know, we shed the tears. We can cry. We can cry for hours. We can have a pity party. It's fine. Yeah. And then it's done.
Permission to feel.
Permission to feel.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share that might be wonderful nuggets of information for people that you would like to add?
I just, anybody, you know, that's out there, I would say, you know, if you take something away from this, is just know that I went from wanting to die before my diagnosis, that my life was such shit that I wanted to die, that in 4 years, and I've been living my best life, you know, like literally probably 6 months into my diagnosis, I was like, yes, like already on this path, that you can transform your life, that a cancer diagnosis being told you have 3 months to live, 6 months to live, 1 year to live, you know, that I just would really encourage people to make their own decision for themselves, how long they want to live, and keep telling yourself and let go of the fears that don't serve you. And really ask yourself, is this serving me? Is this belief system serving me? Is this fear serving me? I believe if you can find a way to heal fear in your body, and to really, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's an ongoing deep diving process. And I've attacked it from every angle, you know, with whether it's energy sessions, whether it's ayahuasca or combo, or whether it's sound journeys, whether it's listening to positive meditations, whatever it is, if you can really, if fear is something that's really inside of you and pretty alive for you, make friends with it, invite it, have a party with it, ask it what it needs, ask it what it's afraid of. And if you can heal that, and if you can really start faking it and just pretending like you're cancer free, making plans in the future, just use me for an inspiration, you know, like it's okay. Grab onto whatever you need. Tara, you know, whatever it is, if you're watching this right now and you're feeling hopeless, or you've just got a diagnosis, or you've got a re-diagnosis, know that you're hearing this for a reason, and take our messages and our sharing and make it yours and run with it. But our minds are powerful beings. And the more that you can make peace within your mind and your fear, and go into that positivity, if you can see the silver lining in everything, I do. I don't get sad. I mean, I don't get angry. I don't get mad when bad things happen, like bad things. I always am like, great, something good is going to happen because of it. I let myself go into that space. So that's been for me a huge, huge gift. And to me, one of a big reason for my healing. So if somebody can just take that and run with it and just fake it till you make it. You don't have to believe it at first. It's okay. It's okay. Just fake it. And then you start believing it. And then you feel it. And then you know it.
Beautiful. Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much, Keri, for your time today. It's such an honor to talk to you. I'm very personally inspired after talking to you. We've had such parallel journeys, but thank you. You've helped giving me little beautiful nuggets of truth that I will sit with. So yeah, I'm really grateful for you taking the time today. And I'm sorry we couldn't be in person, but it's lovely to chat with you 2,500 miles away on Zoom.
I know. I'm still coming to see you as soon as I can. So I definitely can't wait to get to Kaua'i. I'm so happy you're there in that beautiful healing land. I knew it in my bones when you were landing there, that you're there to heal. And, you know I'm so inspired by you. And I know that, you are living your truth. I see you growing in it every day. And I just, anything that knocks me down, I'm just like, okay, I've seen Tara just like be, like I said, that little guy that just won't be popped down. So thank you. And I am forever grateful for you sharing and being so, such a space holder for all of us. It's so inspiring and so appreciated, and just been such an incredible hug. I feel like it's just a hug for me and a safe space that I know that I'm always supported. And so thank you for being you and just showing up.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Yeah,
my heart is so warm and fuzzy now.
yes. I feel like we can talk for 100 hours and barely scratch our surface. Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording now. So we can talk in a moment, but I'm just gonna stop the recording. So
yeah.
Hold on. Don't leave yet.
I'm here.
Stop recording if you receive an email.